Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of The Clueless Capitalist with me, Razi.
And hi, I'm Osman. I'm also Clueless Capitalist number 2. Pleased to meet you all again.
And together we are The Clueless Capitalist, where we discuss emerging startups from Southeast Asia and the region. We look at interesting founder stories and we help you discover the most interesting startups to angel invest in. And for this episode, as we promised you previously, we have Michael, who is the co-founder of Energy Lite. And Energy Lite is the solar energy startup that is revolutionizing the renewable energy space here in Southeast Asia. So we're super excited to have Michael join us and share with us what Energy Lite is and a bit of the origin story, the fundraising and more. So welcome, Michael. Welcome to the Clueless Capitalist.
Thanks, Oz. Thanks, Razi. Happy to be here.
So let's dive right in, right? So I would like to hear the origin story. So how did all of this begin?
Sure. So for me, my background is always been into the power utility space. So previously, I was part of San Miguel Corporation. So maybe you guys know them as a beer company, but they actually own a lot of power generation assets in the Philippines. For them, previously, I was not into renewables as well. So I was actually building coal plants for them. So I have that scene with me, building those coal plants, some energy storage as well. So I was doing project management for them. So I was doing their new projects into their pipeline. So I handle the technical side, I handle the financing side, and making sure that these assets come into life. So I worked for them for several years. Then afterwards, I decided to leave and go to Singapore and actually join Entrepreneur First. So Entrepreneur First has been helpful for me in finding that co-founder that has the same vision as me. So I met Chong in that program. It's actually quite interesting because Chong left the program. At the start of the program, he left. I was looking for someone that fits perfectly into my background, someone who knows the electrical engineering side, who has a knowledge into the hardware side and software side, which is actually Chong, because Chong has a master's in electrical engineering. He's from NTU. He has done a lot of business previously. So he fits right into what I want as a co-founder. So I reached out to him, told him look, I want to go into renewables. Clean energy back then I was thinking, it's gonna be the newest wave into the electricity space. So I want to get into that market. And I have a few background from the projects that we're exploring in San Miguel. And Chong is interested into the market. So I convinced him to go back into the program with me. It's actually kind of late, so we're on the latter stage of the program already. Everyone is closing, partnering up with someone, and we convinced Entrepreneur First or EF to still let us in, present into their IC, and we managed to convince them to invest in Energy Lite. So for us, we're kind of more or less a black sheep into the program. They invested and they believe in us, the background of the founders, the vision that we have, and that's how we started Energy Lite.
I think that's a very interesting founding story, how you lost Chong and you got him to convince him, and then you managed to get funding. I think that's that's a story that we wouldn't know just by reading that pitch deck, right? So thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
So in terms of your experience as well when you were working with San Miguel, yeah, you're right. When I first originally came across San Miguel, it was with a beer brewing company. But working in a previous telco, we did some engagements with SMC in the Philippines. They're huge. Really, you don't realize it until you actually go into the Philippines and you realize how pervasive they are. Tell me more about the experience that you developed while you were there and what really triggered this thought that Energy Lite is something that could be a game changer.
Sure. So when I was in San Miguel, it's actually quite different because in terms of the organization itself, they have the capability to do all these ideas that you have in mind. So as long as you meet the required returns that you have for this project, and then at the same time manage like the risks for this new projects. You can do a lot of things. So for me, like before I left San Miguel, like we are exploring energy storage. So back then, I think around 2018, we're one of the first ones that established energy storage system in Asia specifically. So this energy storage, actually, the role of it is more like a backup power system. And whenever there's an intermittency, so like let's say renewable energy goes down into its production, you actually need to prevent frequency fluctuation, which is due to the drop of power generation. You have to have someone like another source of energy to come in. And that is like the purpose of those energy storage. So you can imagine like San Miguel Corporation or SMC, they have that capability to invest into this new technology and look at the future in general, that okay, we're into the coal industry or we are in traditional energy industry, but at the same time we're still looking into the future that as renewables comes in, you will have these issues. So for us, we position ourselves as the support into doing renewables, was of course maintaining the returns that we want into the traditional energy resources. So like it's the same thing that we did or motivation that we did into Energy Lite. So the mindset back then was we want to position ourselves in a way where there's going to be a future into the industry that we're in. We know that renewables is going to be big. It's just the wave started like 10 years ago, but this is like the biggest push that we've ever seen in the electricity space since like the gas plants was introduced into the power market. So we know that renewables is needed, not just because it's economically feasible, but at the same time it's for saving the world. I mean, it all boils down to that of course we need to make sure that our power generation source can be sustainable in the future generations to come.
So just out of curiosity, from your industry background, what's really driving the push into renewables? Is it a supply side issue with fossil fuels? Is it just the ESG movement, with people being more conscious about where their investments are going? Or is it something to do with the fundamental change in solar generation itself? Or is it a combination of all of them? Is it what's driving this whole move to renewables in general and solar in general?
So it's actually a mix of this different circumstances. So like solar panels or like renewable energy technology has been developed like around in the 70s and 80s. But the cost of it is really significant. It doesn't make sense as a power generation source for any countries back then. But the push that has been done in the last 30 years is to bring down this cost. And at this point in time where its cost is actually competitive against like oil resources or coal resources, that's one of the main driver why people are shifting to renewables. And then of course another thing is the fluctuation in terms of this oil and gas in the market. So as we know, like in the power generation industry, the main driver of electricity price is the Brent price, if it's like a gas price or like oil price and coal index. So these indices that you have push the electricity price up or it pushes it down. So, but with renewables, it's actually zero cost. Like if you try to participate in the energy market, this renewable resources, you put it at zero so that you'll be deployed, because whatever happens, this renewables will be produced because sunlight is there or like wind is there. So that's why it drives the prices down. So now that as the oil and gas price is going higher, you want to have those resources to bring it down, which is renewable energy. That's why more people are investing in it, and the government is supporting the push for it. Of course, like there's still mandate like the Paris Convention where everyone committed to reduce their carbon emission. But at the same time, it's not just that. Economically speaking, renewables is a better choice than oil and gas now. Especially with the environment that we are in.
Okay. So you could say that we're at this unique turning point now where, we had that hiccup with Donald Trump saying that he's not part of the Paris Climate Accord, and now everyone's coming back to that table, and there are countries still pushing that. So there's that side where you've got governments really actively pushing on a more sustainable future, and then you've got the renewables themselves helping drive energy prices down. And you could argue that, with the oil price increases that we're seeing now at the moment, it's also making a stronger case for renewables. Is that
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then you can imagine renewable energy is a secured energy resources for any countries. I mean, with this geopolitical risk where countries are reliant into the ones that has or have oil and gas resources, renewable energy, you can place it into your country itself. So you have that energy that can be utilized and doesn't have any risk, as long as, of course, you have the land resources for it. But at the same time, it pushes other countries, especially European, American, or even Asian countries, to really push for this renewable energy, to have that safe resources for their energy needs.
Okay. Just to understand where Energy Lite is going with this as well, I mean, what would success look like for you once, let's say in 5 years' time, where would you see a successful Energy Lite business?
So for us, it's all about deploying solar asset to all sizes of building. I think that's what we have in our pitch deck, and that is the heart of Energy Lite. We want to bring solar projects into the SMEs themselves, or even to all buildings themselves, so that they can have resources that can actually reduce their operational costs, and then at the same time contribute or reduce their carbon emission as a company. So for us, success is all about seeing these solar panels into the customers that we're targeting, especially the smaller ones, which are usually left behind into this option, into a new technology or into a new processes. It's always the smaller companies or smaller individuals that are actually left behind. So we want to focus on them because there's more opportunities into this type of buildings.
Yeah. I mean, the only observation I made with regards to that was just in general, there's a critical mass effect, right? That you can, everyone's going after the easy, simple things like, let me go after the big global manufacturers or the big government agencies, and they're the type of deals that most of the larger players want to address. It's the SMEs and the micro SMEs which really would benefit from stable energy prices, being able to fix their operating cost, and they're missing out.
And the benefit of it is actually it builds the business for the future. So for us, with our financing partner investing on this project, their idea is these resources not just reduce the carbon emission, but it actually allows these businesses to grow more, because the savings that they're getting now, they can use it to either invest into a new opportunity in their industry, or at the same time use it to make their employees' salary higher. So there's a lot of opportunities here for these SMEs, and the savings that they get, it actually grows the business altogether. So it's more or less like a nation building tool as well in some way, because it allows them to grow the economy for these SMEs.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point. If I look anecdotally from a visit a friend just made from Pakistan, he came back. Now he's a high-flying executive, and he decided he was going to work abroad, and he went back to his hometown in Karachi, and he said the power outages just made it impossible to work. You think, okay, well, he's on a laptop, right? Why would a power outage give him an issue? But when your Wi-Fi no longer works and you can't connect to the network, it really doesn't matter whether you're on a laptop or not. If the energy output to your house is cut off, you're kind of stuck, right? You can have your laptop working off a battery, but your Wi-Fi router and your, all the other stuff that relies on it doesn't work, and then you've got no internet connection. And the other point that he brought out was, well, if I'm having a problem as an individual not being able to connect to the internet and work remotely, that's like one aspect of the economy that's really suffering, the people who've got the ability to work from home. But he said the other point was that if I'm running a factory and I've got intermittent power, then I can only run my business for, let's say, 8 hours a day, if I'm lucky. And it might be 5 hours. And then how do I hire people on that basis? But if you've got solar energy and you've got the ability to power your factory regardless of that, now I've got the opportunity to run my factory potentially 24 hours a day. And the externalities of that are, I can hire more people, I can do more shift work, and more people in the economy benefit. So when you talk about nation building, that for me is what a real impact is that you give businesses stability, you give them the ability to operate autonomously and grow their business more successfully.
Just to add to that, I was just watching a documentary on Netflix about Indonesia, and they went to this small remote village, and their big challenge was they keep using diesel generators, and there's a number of challenges with that, right? So of course the cost of the diesel, then secondly, these diesel generators, they make a lot of noise. So they were talking about how, when everyone powers up the diesel generators, it's really noisy, and then there's a lot of air pollution, so it's really smoky and it's not good. And this village, they realized that they had a stream nearby, and they started to do a small hydroelectric power generator. So when you think about bringing in solar, it's Indonesia is a tropical country, so they have lots of sunlight, and they could definitely do something with solar panels as well.
Exactly, and it points down to the role of renewable energy in different economies altogether, because it helps not just, of course, reduce the carbon emission, makes the electricity lower, but at the same time provide energy sources to these SMEs or micro SMEs that badly needs these energy resources so that they can grow into a much more prosperous community. So that is where renewable energy for us, what's the value of it into the clients that we serve, and we're a big believer of the shift into renewable energy.
Out of curiosity as well, we always talk about social development goals in this type of space as well. Just off the top of your head, what are the social development goals that Energy Lite are addressing?
Sure. I think for us, the main thing is access to clean energy. I think that's SDG 7. This SDG 7, the role of Energy Lite is to deploy more renewable energy into the energy mix of the countries that we are operating in. So Energy Lite allows rooftop solar for the smaller buildings, and that adds on to the portfolio of that particular country for solar projects. So that is the main contribution of Energy Lite into this sustainable development goals. But at the same time, the value of it is not just, of course, in terms of the energy mix, but at the same time, that's what we are discussing. The main value that our customers see in our solution is the savings that they're getting coming from this rooftop solar that we're installing into their facility. So it touches onto their ability to grow as well as a business. But right now, we're just tracking the amount of renewable energy that we're developing or we're providing into our customers. But at the same time, the effect of it is much more than that.
Right.
For me, Osman, we are really into investing in companies that are making a difference in the world, right? So we're looking at companies that are impacting the community and, of course, impacting the world at large. And that's definitely something that Energy Lite is doing. So for the other potential angel investors and people tuning in, the question that I'm sure that's on their mind is, Maybe Michael, you could share with us what is the market size in this solar energy space that you're in.
So, for renewable energy, what you want to replace is the current source of energy, which is like traditional energy resources like coal, gas. I mean, it's inevitable. It will happen. However, the question is, when will it happen? And then at the same time, and how much opportunity it is. So for Energy Lite, the market that we're dealing with is for energy resource for small and medium enterprises, and even for slightly larger enterprises. So for us, we're looking at a $24 billion market in just Philippines and Singapore alone. How did we come up with that number? So we take a look at the number of buildings that are actually existing in those countries, like on the manufacturing side, the commercial and industrial. And then from there, we identify like how much value that we can get coming from this particular building. So in average, like the value that we're getting for one building is from around 50 to 100,000 Singapore dollars per project. So with this, let's say with the number of buildings that we're dealing with, which is like 8,000, and then we can derive like the target segment that we're dealing with is around 10% of that. That is how we come up with the $24 billion opportunity. And imagine, little by little, these markets are growing, because we're not just talking about like a market that is going down. It is a market that a lot of people wants to go in for, because as what we discussed, it's cheaper, it's more sustainable, and then at the same time, it allows to grow your business more.
There's a massive opportunity, $24 billion just Singapore and the Philippines alone. And I think we saw in the previous episode that there were expansion plans into other markets like Indonesia, Vietnam, and all of that. So definitely the scale of the opportunity is going to grow. So maybe Michael, you can share with us where are you right now with Energy Lite?
Sure. So for us, Energy Lite, we're in the Philippines and in Singapore right now. So we started our business in Singapore. So currently we're working on more than 25 megawatt projects in both countries. So converting that into cash, where we're actually working on generating around $3 to $4 million of revenue with these projects alone. So once we develop these projects in the next 6 to 12 months, we are going to generate that as a revenue. And then at the same time, of course, because in our business model, we have a fee upon deploying this rooftop solar, and we have a fee for maintaining it. Because that's another aspect of this renewable energy or any other energy resources in general. You have to maintain it so that, of course, the investment that you do can actually generate the returns that it needs. So we are the ones maintaining it as well. So the model is actually perfect for us because we have cash to grow our business, and then at the same time, we have cash to sustain our business as well.
Okay. One question really where, you talked about buildings and how many buildings there are, and we've also talked about energy production in megawatts and kilowatts. So one example where we've had in the past is where we were talking one metric and then we were talking another metric. What are the real metrics that you're going to be measuring yourself against, and which ones are the ones that really matter? If I'm coming in as an investor, how do I measure your performance as a business?
So for us, success is about the number of megawatts that we actually deploy into the market. So megawatt refers to the amount of energy that we can actually produce at that point in time. So let's say we place solar panels into a particular roof. There's actually a limited number of solar panels we can place, and one solar panel is actually a 1 watt peak. 1 watt is actually you need 100,000 or 1 million watts to produce to have 1 megawatt. So meaning like for one solar panels is around 540 watt peak. So you need you can imagine how many panels that you need to place to reach like 1 megawatt. So for us, that is the measurement of the amount of projects that we're generating as a company. So as we have one building, we look at it in megawatt, and our business actually is being paid based on the number of megawatts deploy into our clients. So the metrics that we usually use is the megawatts, and then of course like the amount of cash that we generated per megawatt that we deploy to our customers.
Okay, and I think the next question that we really wanted to understand is what's holding you back at the moment? What's holding Energy Lite back?
So for us, like what we're focusing now is establishing ourselves. We want to make sure that we have a good track record in delivering the solution that we want to do in, let's say, in the Philippines. So that's why like what we're doing now is focusing into the market, hiring the right team so that we establish our fundamentals correctly and grow the business even and be a market leader in the market that we are in right now. However, like of course in the business itself, one key thing is being able to handle the demand coming from the clients. So let's say in the Philippines, there's a lot of buildings that wants to save cost onto their electricity because I mean the gas price right now is astronomically high. So it translates into their electricity cost. So even if there's a demand there, of course our team is limited in terms of the projects that we can do. That's why one of the key things that we're developing is we're enabling our business through the software that we have inside the company. So this software will allow us to work on more projects at a time. And that's the thing that we're trying to overcome as we build the business, not just, let's say, in the countries that we're in, but in the other countries that badly needs the solution that we're offering. So that's what's holding us back right now, making sure that our process is actually as efficient as possible. But we're working on it. For Energy Lite, the software that we're developing geared towards making the deployment of rooftop solar projects more efficient. So that is the bread and butter that we're doing, or what we're changing in the current environment for renewable energy. So for rooftop solar projects, you have to make sure that the quality of installation is actually correct. And then at the same time, once you do the installation itself with the designs that you have to make sure that it's being followed correctly so that you can overcome the technical risk that that most of the financing partner that we have are actually wary of. Because for them, if I invest something, I want to make sure that it's functioning correctly as what you predicted at the start of the project. So for us, Energy Lite, that's where we're trying to make things more efficient. Our software, our construction workflow tool allows different stakeholders to collaborate in creating the design for this project, and then at the same time checking all the financial due diligence and technical due diligence for this project, so that once it is executed, you can actually be sure that it is up to the standards that our financing partner. Even during construction itself, our subcontractors are actually providing updates there real time, so that the amount of manpower in the site itself is actually less than what is needed previously. Because before, how you do it is you have one person into the site, and imagine like you have one site in like the north of Luzon, you have another site in south of Luzon. It's like a 10-hour drive. You need a lot of manpower for this project, and that's why like previously these projects are actually not being serviced because it's not worth the time of our financing partners. So now we're removing that barrier through our software, and we're allowing more projects to be deployed in the market that we're in. And that is the value of the software that we have integrated into the product and service offerings that Energy Lite is doing.
Okay. Just walk us through the financing aspect of this and the financing partner, and what's really in it for them in this whole scheme of things.
So for us, most of our financing partner are either independent power producers. So either they own traditional energy resources before and wants to go into renewables. It's a new investment for them. Another one is like green funds. So for these green funds, investing into infrastructure, they're expecting a certain return that is more stable. Stable meaning like there's a consistent revenue source, which is good for renewable energy or any other power assets in general. So for them, it's like a new infrastructure assets that they can invest in. And of course, you have individuals that wants to own it as this renewable energy projects, and then of course generate value from it, because of course there's a return that you get for investing into these projects. So for us, like our financing partner, they're expecting a certain return for the projects that they invested into. So usually we're talking about, in Singapore, we're talking about at least 8% unlevered IRR for these projects. In the Philippines, of course, it's much higher because the country risk is higher. Talking about like 10% unlevered IRR, even higher. So that is the value that they're seeing there. And of course, for them, they want to deploy the capital that they have, that they're managing or that they have as a company.
Okay, and normally when people are talking to startups, they're usually talking about MRR and ARR and the like, but your financials are a little bit different because of the nature of your business. I would call it, from an uneducated point, we would call it lumpy financials, where you get like a big chunk of money and then you've got the smaller trail. Do you want to just talk through how that works and how you manage that?
Sure. I think for us, the model that we have is kind of similar to most construction companies or like energy service providers in the market. So for them, upon delivering the service or product that you provide, you get a significant revenue there. And that revenue, for us, flows into the development that we do for this particular project. So there's a huge chunk of revenue that we receive, and then for servicing this project, it's like an appliance, right? So you buy the appliance, and then for service maintenance of it, if you avail the service of the energy service provider, you have to pay on an annual basis. So it's the same thing for Energy Lite. So we have revenue for the next 15 to 20 years to maintain these assets, to make sure that it is running efficiently, and then at the same time providing the energy that is needed by these clients that we have. So that is a model that we have in Energy Lite.
Just to be very clear, the lumpy financials that we've talked about, they're on the Energy Lite side. The end user, it just gets doesn't see that big bill at the end of construction. They don't need to pay for anything. They just pay for the energy that's being consumed and generated.
Exactly. So on the side of of the building owner, so the amount of fees that they have to pay is only the energy that they consume, so the kilowatt hour that they consume. So there's no big cost that they have to pay at the start, and there's no big cost that they have to pay at the end of the contract. For them, it's like a mobile plan. They pay what you consume at that point in time. So there's nothing changed in the way they do things. What changes actually they're saving now in their electricity bill, because the rate that we offer is lower than the rate that's being offered by the utility. Usually, right now the cost is the savings that they're getting is 50% on the rate.
I think everyone who's watching would like to know, what are you raising at this point of time, and what has already been raised?
Sure. So for Energy Lite, we've actually raised a pre-seed round a year ago. So we've raised $500,000 previously, and right now we're actually looking to do a bridge round for our team before our looking to raise around 500 to 1 million US dollar to grow our business in the Philippines and to make our technology more robust.
And what is the valuation currently?
So currently we're looking at around 6 million pre-money valuation for a round.
And you already mentioned that this $500 to $1 million that you will raise is going to be used to improve the processes and to grow further in the Philippines, right?
Correct. So for us, what we want to do is in this particular bridge round is to do all the necessary fundamentals that we need in the Philippines market. So we want to make sure that our sales process are in place. We want to make sure that our execution process are efficient. And then at the same time, we can handle the opportunity in the market itself. Because as I've said, like the markets for Philippines and Singapore is a $24 billion market. So we want to make sure that our fundamentals are right in that particular market before we try to expand into another market. And then at the same time, in terms of technology, we want to automate some of the things that we're doing manually right now. So let's say, for example, in terms of the design, so we want to, whenever you do solar design, there's some things there that are repetitive. So let's say it's a single line diagram, the panel, the walkway layout, panel layout, the mounting layout that you want. We want to automate those things based on the parameters that we set in the building design itself. So with these things, we can actually reduce the development cost further, which actually translates to a lower rate for our customer or even a higher returns to our finance. So in this case, it's a win-win opportunity to both stakeholders that we're dealing with.
You didn't mention how you're raising it. Is it through a safe note, convertible note? What are the terms for the convertible note, if it is?
Sure. So for us, we're doing it as a convertible note for this bridge round. So what we want to do here is, of course, usual terms for a convertible, or you have a valuation cap and then a certain discount for this particular round. So for our fundraising, it's actually being handled with Schneider Electric. Schneider Electric is actually participating in this particular bridge round, and they've done most of the due diligence already. So we'll be happy to connect anyone who's interested to participate as well with Schneider Electric and see where we are as a business.
Yeah. And just as a comment there, it's really good when you've got a lead investor who's done all that due diligence, because if you're like both me and Razi, we don't really understand the industry. But if we know that there's somebody who does and they've already done their due diligence, if you can validate those questions with them, they've already asked all the questions that we don't know to ask. And it gives everybody a lot of confidence on that particular round, that they don't need to think too hard about the fundraising round, because there's a lead investor who's done all the hard work, understands the market, understands the issues, challenges, and still sees it as an opportunity for them to move forward with. That gives everybody comfort on the whole round itself. Yeah, especially for clueless investors like me and Razi.
And I want to highlight more that it's strategic for us to have Schneider Electric, as you said, like they know the business that we're in, and they do understand the opportunity that we're working, and they've been really helpful for us in terms of setting direction where the company is. So it's a smart investment for them. And it's really great that we're going to have them in our bridge round as we plan to grow the business further in the coming months or even the coming years.
Yeah, and for me, I understand that level of smartness as well, because coming from a large telco in the past, trying to pursue opportunities as a large entity is just economically unviable for large businesses and I'm not saying Schneider are inefficient, but like with all large companies, when they're doing certain things, they're obliged to report to the market, they're obliged to do things for the shareholder, which means there's a lot of overhead on due diligence, and usually that means you've got maybe 10, 15 people that are running a particular project, and that cost of deal pursuit is too high for the type of opportunities that Energy Lite would typically be addressing. So this is a smart way for them to eat into a market that they typically are excluded from, right? And that's usually how the large telcos also play. If you look at how they typically go into a market, is that they acquire somebody who's working on a niche, working in a very particular area of the business that the telcos can't operate in, and they'll leverage that skill and capability before they do an acquisition.
I think it's very promising that Schneider Electric is there. I think that gives a lot of assurance to all the other angel investors who might be interested. So one of the questions that is always on people's minds, right, is if I were to make an investment now, what is the potential exit or what is the potential return? I think it's there in your slide, but then we thought that it's best that we let Michael talk us through it.
Yeah. I think for this one, the investment is really looking at the opportunity that we are in and the vision that we have. So for Energy Lite, what we want to do, as I always say, is we want to bring solar to all sizes of buildings in Asia. So that opportunity is actually really big. As you can imagine, there's a lot of buildings across Asia itself. So the opportunity itself is actually built. In terms of returns that we're looking at in the business, it all boils down on how we're going to get there. So of course for us, opportunities for exit is going through acquisition, and there's a lot of acquisition that has been done for energy companies in the past few years. So recently, like a Singapore solar company has been acquired for $1 billion. So the opportunity for renewable energy is quite big, especially oil and gas companies wants to enter the market itself. So in terms of return, as you come in now, as I've said earlier, right, we're at $6 million pre-money valuation. The acquisition that was done for other energy companies in the billion. So you can imagine from there, like the amount of X return that you will get if we reach there. And we are on track on doing such thing, as we have the expertise and then at the same time the team to execute the same thing.
How big is the team, by the way, at the moment?
So currently we have seven people in our team. So we have 4 full-time here in Singapore, and we have 3 full-time in the Philippines. And we're planning to grow that. So this bridge round will allow us to grow into 20 people in the next 6 to 12 months. We're planning to hire 10 more people in the Philippines, or even more than that, as we grow the business there. So same thing here in Singapore, we're hiring a few people so that we can maintain the growth that we're looking in the market. The opportunity is less, as everyone knows, is less higher here in Singapore, but at the same time, we're seeing opportunities here in Singapore, so we're still trying to maintain it, but we're doubling down in the Philippines market where the opportunity is much higher.
I think it's definitely a very promising and exciting opportunity, So for everyone who's tuning in, you've heard it from Michael on what the opportunity is. I think we all are strong believers on renewable energy and making a difference. So I think this is definitely an interesting investment to make.
We talked briefly when Rasi asked about being able to, in the Philippines, can you supply energy into the grid? In terms of where that relates to the whole PESEL analysis is really around each country has got its own political environment, regulatory environment, and if you're planning to grow into multiple different countries, well, what political, economic, and technological issues are you encountering that you think you'll be able to overcome?
Sure. I think for this one, of course, regulation is one thing that we have to consider when we go to a particular market. But the reason why you cannot place electricity into the power grid is just a technical issue. So for this market, of course, it's a developing country. This country has a regulation not allowing electricity to flow back to the grid. It's because the transformer and power lines into those areas cannot support energy backflow. So meaning, if there's more load or more energy that is placed into those power lines, there's a risk for it to explode. That's why they're not allowing it. But at the same time, as their economy grows, there's still opportunities, and the infrastructure grows. There's more opportunity that they will allow power to flow back into the power grid. We can only go better in terms of the regulation that we're in. But even without that, or even not allowing power to flow back to the power grid, our business model works. And we've proven that in the Philippines, wherein it's an added work for us to understand like how much solar panels we can place into the roof itself to maintain the returns that our financing partner wants and the savings that our client will get. But at the same time, in those countries where there's that regulation where you cannot export, we're just going to do the model that we've done in the Philippines. And for those markets where we can export, we're going to do the model that we have in Singapore. So the good thing in our model is government is actually not involved in the contract itself. So it's a business-to-business deal. And as long as business are benefiting from our solution, like the savings that they will get and the reduced carbon emission, we can go into that particular market. And it's just about navigating the execution part, like of delivering the solution into this particular.
Okay, I just remembered a clueless question as well. With regards to, solar energy, part of your solution, does that include any of the energy storage, or is that an optional feature that you can have?
Yeah, I think for us, it is an option that we actually have for our company. The question for energy storage is actually just about the price. So just to give an idea for everyone, it's like solar energy, the cost, levelized cost of energy for it is, let's say, 7 centavos. And customers in the Philippines are paying 25 centavos. So if our financing partner wants to make money out of it, they will charge you like 12 centavos or like 11 centavos. They're happy. Everyone's happy because now you don't have to pay 25 cents, you only have to pay 11 cents. But the other ones has to, like for our financing partners, they're going to earn like 3 or 4 centavos coming from the energy that is being produced. If you add in the energy storage into the equation, because the levelized cost of energy of it is at around can be from 10 to 15 or even more than that, depending on the technology itself, like lithium-ion or like vanadium redox or any other energy storage technology out there. It's not enough to justify the investment right now. But as I've said, it's the same thing for solar panels like 10, 15 years ago. So I'm really bullish about energy storage to be part of our solutions in the future as the technology develops and as the price goes down.
Okay. Clarify what the terminology was that you used, centavos, is that correct?
Yes. So earlier I was talking about the levelized cost of energy. So the levelized cost of energy is the total cost and of the capex and the maintenance that you have to do for your system divided by the number of energy that you can actually utilize. So kilowatt hour. So it's centavos per kilowatt hour, like the cost per kilowatt hour. So in that sense, I just converted it into centavos because that is what people usually pay per kilowatt hour. So if you want to compare it as is to how much you're paying and to how much it costs to produce per kilowatt hour for a certain technology, the levelized cost of energy is actually a great tool to compare it.
So one of the things that we have is we allow our subscribers to ask some questions. So they watch the pitch deck, and some angel investors, they were curious about finding out more. So one of the questions that we have from a subscriber is, he talks about intermittency as being one of the big challenges for renewable energy because on cloudy days, the solar energy is not available maybe. So the question was, how is Energy Lite managing intermittency? Is it using batteries?
That's actually a great question. Like intermittency is one of the questions for renewable energy. As Rassi explained, you cannot control if there's cloudy days or like if there's no wind blowing at that point in time. So intermittency into a building level. So if you look at it in the building side, how solar panels are actually connected to the electrical board of the client is whenever there's no production of solar panels, the power grid comes in. So there's going to be no outages that the client will experience if solar panels are not producing. I think the issue of intermittency for renewable energy is a much bigger problem in the grid level itself. And in the grid level, where a huge amount of energy supply goes down, as I've explained, that's actually where San Miguel SMC wants to position itself, to provide that solution to handle the intermittency if the total production in the power grid itself goes down because there's a cloud that blocks like a lot of solar farms in a certain region. That's where intermittency creates a problem. But in the building level size, it's not really that big of a problem because you have the power grid supplying energy at in there.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good to hear that the power grid energy kicks in whenever there's intermittency. So the next question from one of our subscribers was about the supply chain for renewable energy. So he was saying that it's expected to come under a lot of pressure. There's going to be a crunch on PV solar cells, copper wires, batteries, and these things may be in short supply because the industry is really taking off, right? So the question was, how has Energy Lite factored these into your risks?
Sure. In most industries, the supply chain and the shortage of raw materials actually affects the industry most industries right now, not just the renewable energy industry. For renewable energy industry, aside from these shortages, you also have the demand, like all over the world. Like everyone wants to shift to renewable energy, and that's why there's some shortages in equipment itself. And we've experienced it. Like last week, we ordered solar panels. And then this week we cannot order again, so we'll have to wait for the next supply by next week before we can ship another batch of solar panels. So there's always that risk that we're facing, but at the same time, that's actually where we're trying to make things more efficient in terms of like developing these projects. As we develop more projects at a time, we'll have more leverage into the manufacturers that we're working with, and we're working with the top tier manufacturers for this equipment, like Jinko Solar, J Solar, Trina Solar. So we're managing this supply chain crunch efficiently right now, and as we build more solar panels we install more solar panels into our. So the supply will always catch up. That's what we believe in, and because of course there's. The issue is more on the demand. You have a lot more demand than your supply, so the supply chain will catch up in the coming years. But as of now, we are handling it efficiently by developing projects either two at a time or mitigating the missing parts that we have in one project to another project. And this will be more efficient as we go develop more projects at a time.
Got it. So. Okay, that's good to hear. So then as you develop those relationships with the manufacturers as well, that's going to help mitigate all of these risks.
Correct.
One other question also from a subscriber was asking about competition. So he was saying that because the space is really heating up and everyone is looking towards renewable energies, there are a lot of small players, a lot of medium-sized players entering into the market. So the question was, how the competitive landscape is right now for Energy Lite in the Philippines and in Singapore?
Sure. So most of the competitors that we have in the market are actually focused onto the larger projects because for them it's safer. The cost is actually manageable for them, and the return that they will get is decent enough. So for smaller projects that we're dealing with, there's actually just a handful of us in that particular space. Particularly because it's actually hard to create scale into that target market segment itself because of the cost involved in developing these projects. And our software that enables us to work on this particular target segment. So for us, we want to capture that market efficiently with the model that we have and with the technology that we have. And we're one of the pioneers in there, to be honest. So the market is, the competition is big for larger projects, but for smaller projects, there's because of the complexity and how you deliver it, it's the same complexity as the larger projects. You want to do larger projects first. For us, we are going to the smaller buildings segment, and we're trying to create position ourselves there as one of the market leaders. I think for us, Energy Lite, the goal of the company, as I've said previously, is to develop or to bring solar, rooftop solar to all sizes of buildings. But at the same time, for us as a company, we're doing it in a way where we're actually building a company that is profitable and not just focus on the social aspect of it. Now, in renewable energy, the economics are actually good, where company can actually become big and you can generate significant returns in a company related to renewable energy. So for us, the social aspect is there, but at the same time, we're focused on building a business that can actually generate a return that is really significant, similar to other renewable energy companies in Europe or in the US that manage to exit big in the either stock market or being acquired by large companies in other industries.
And in terms of the next countries that you're looking to expand into, I know the focus is really Philippines and Singapore, but are there any others that are top of mind at the moment?
For us, Energy Lite, we're more focused on developing countries where the solar industry is on its nascent stage of adoption. So we're looking at the Bangladesh market, where renewable energy is starting to be picked up by most businesses there. We're also looking at the Laos market, Cambodia market, where there's interest for renewable energy, but it's still growing slowly because most of the companies that need it are in smaller scale. So in those markets, we can take over the opportunity and grow there as one of the market leaders in renewable.
Okay, and that's interesting, right? Because those markets, they've often got underdeveloped national grids as well, so their need is even more acute. If they want to grow the economy, they need to have more of a distributed energy model anyway, generating at the point of consumption, and that's another value that you're bringing here anyway.
So thank you, Michael, for joining us and sharing all of your insights on
Sure.
Energy Lite, and sharing with us the big opportunity that Energy Lite presents all of our viewers. So thank you, Michael, for your time. And for everyone who's watching, please like, comment and subscribe to our channel. And if you have any questions that you think we should be asking our founders in the next interviews, please leave them in the comment below as well. So we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, and catch you later. Bye bye.